Hi guys, my name is Dante, and welcome back to Overpaint, which means I go through my Patreon page and check out all the submissions you guys sent to me in July, giving some advice and maybe fixing something. First patient is Artistic Apricot, and their interesting character with a leg augmentation. Hello Dante. Hi Apricot. It's a personal work of a character of mine, a tiefling named Castor. Generally, anything that you notice that could be worked on would be helpful, but my biggest concerns are the clothing folds, color, and how to better integrate the hands. Additionally, his eyes look wonky. The character is a painter and is very passionate about it. Before he had a prosthetic, he wasn't able to really move around easily, so he wanted to capture the world wherever he found beauty since he wasn't sure when he could see it again. Very romantic. His horns are supposed to be ram-like. In retrospect, I realize I didn't really render them particularly, so they kinda blend with his pointed ears. Something I've noticed about my art is that I always end up adding a hue to the overall image, even if not intending to, and have to try to course correct later. I also think I end up removing detail from shadow too much, making it difficult sometimes to read paintings. Example included below. Yeah, a lot of shadows ate away a lot of details. I think the main problem in here is that the lighting is from the back. You have the same situation in your actual submission. Any and all suggestions would be welcome, thank you. So let's see what I managed to do with that after a quick word from this channel sponsor WingFox. It's called Realistic Style Illustration Character Creation, Bruce Lee. Now, it's showing here that it's beginner intermediate. I really think it's like a beginner course. It includes a lot of basic points that you have to go through to create a basic illustration with a character, with dynamic perspective and everything. And mostly it's aimed at using Photoshop and, just getting your whole workflow together. So I think it's really fitting well for beginners just to get a hang of the whole technology and how to use your software in order to achieve nice results with different textures, blending modes, using a bunch of layers, different textures, working with the brushes, creating your sketch, working underneath the sketch in a separate layer to create the colorful illustration, adding textures and details and special effects to get the whole thing popping. So if you guys are interested in the Bruce Lee course, the affiliate link is in the description. Before it's fully released, it costs $39 for the full access, so you get this 12-hour-long course right now, and you get the full access as all videos come out. Now back to the Overpaint. Alright, Apricot. So my first impression is that the picture actually works. I really like it. When I look at it, I can see what makes the character interesting and what makes me want to look at it, what you are going for. So it looks nice, cozy, and there's certain love to the character that I can see, so that's pretty cool. I can see some issues with the rendering, but most of them are just about not really defining the geometry in its full three-dimensional glory. So everything is kind of more like drawn instead of actually being, constructed and painted as a three-dimensional object at an actual angle. Generally, this approach works, and this is the kind of mode that more or less most artists are painting in most of the time. The only difference is professional artists went through the stage where they realized that this is not enough. And even if you paint with quick spots, you still have to keep in mind what the actual three-dimensional shape is like. And not just vaguely, but like truly understanding each plane you're painting. And of course, the main reason and the main tool how to have something show for it, why keep it all in mind, is more accurate work with values. So it's about defining context shadows more, it's about separating the planes better with lighting when they actually face the light source or turn away from it. So all that basic yada yada that I keep talking about in pretty much every video. No pressure or anything, of course. It's hard to learn, it's hard to understand how it all works, and at the same time go for whatever you want it to go for, But when you said that the horns didn't really work well, I think what you needed to do, like this is one of the examples, but I think it pretty much shows everything else. Like it's the same mistake that led to everything else. When you add the horns, you have to keep in mind this kind of geometry that's going on in here. So that's the cranial part and the face goes lower, but what we need in here is we truly need to define. So if the ears are kind of like here somewhere, I don't know how exactly you are going for ears. You said they blended together with horns. Well, there's literally no ears. As far as what I can see, I can really see the horn and maybe that little thing, probably. That in the middle, that's the ear, probably. Okay, so that's actually like a design, right? It needs to stick out exactly in the middle of the horn. Well, then we use this reference and we have a look. So these horns, I don't know if it's necessary, like the character has pretty rocking bangs over here and the horn is supposed to start like instead of them. Well, yeah, let's make it a bit more, you know, subtle and on the side, but still, like, it's really interfering with the design of the bangs here. So that's something to think about. You see, I see a clear issue because I understand the clear geometry. Right now, I need to define a complex curvature that's going backwards. So for that, I'm gonna break it down into smaller planes like this, even though it's obviously supposed to be all around. This way I get to define much better what's truly going on in there, you know? So another horn would be like symmetrically in here somehow. I'm not defining like super precise geometry in here or anything, but that's because I don't need it to be that precise. It's about, you know, choosing the right scale for your precision. It's pretty much always about it. The style of your artwork, like where do you stop with your brushwork and everything, or with general, like how much you simplify shapes. It's about the scale and understanding through the details that you work on and how they really work together. You gotta understand where to stop, otherwise you will end up, you know, using a ruler and whatever, like maybe even using a 3D app to make sure your geometry of the horns is perfect. You don't need all of that. It doesn't have to be that complex. It just needs to be precise enough for this exact situation and nothing else. I'm trying to like have a consistent geometry, but at the same time, I don't want to lose this interesting silhouette right here, you know? Where there's this clear horn silhouette going on. I want to keep it. Or I could actually have a closer look at what the reference is telling me, right? So I should have gone with this angle, I guess. So if we remove all of that, pretty much it's going forward, like right away, and like this. And yeah, the ear, like, I don't know if it's really necessary to go that way. I would first of all make it more, like, maybe bigger, so it would read, you know? Something like that would probably work, and in here even better, or maybe not better, maybe worse, something like that. So that's the kind of look I would go for. You were talking about the loss of details in the shadows. Honestly, as I was talking about it in the video about paint like a Rembrandt and don't waste time defining details in the shadows, maybe this is the kind of shadow that you didn't want to have. And if so, then you can just, you know, define the plane of the leg right here, and maybe it's the stretching point of the cloth, which is another thing that you gotta do for the wrinkles of the cloth. Points of tension and points of extra, like where the contraction happened and there's too much cloth for the place. Like on the side of the elbow, that's obviously not the place to add more of this loose cloth. So only in here, and in here it gets tight. That's the whole point of bending an elbow. And so I would add a little bit more light from this side and continue it in here for consistency so it would read correctly. And, well, generally that's what I would do. And in terms of consistency, I would work a bit better on making sure the tail is reading more consistently. And right now in here, like, I really needed a moment to understand what the hell is that? Like, where is it coming from? I didn't get it right away. On one hand, it's a technical issue of making things just work together. Maybe the lighting should be more consistent, but really it's more of a design issue here. So you just need to come up with a better positioning of the tail in this situation so it would read more clearly. Generally, the shape design of this little part right here that we're seeing here is just bad. It looks really ugly. It just needs to have some kind of better shape, better place, better direction. Something about it needs to be better. Maybe the main thing is that it needs to truly stick out of the body instead of looking kind of like flat on the side. That's why it doesn't read like a tail at first before you put the whole thing together and investigate. So yeah, it needs to read like an actual shape coming out of the body. So I ended up working with this a little bit more, obviously not just showing the sketch, but actually visualizing it. So I went from this to this. So the first thing I did, I zoomed out, something I forgot to mention, the character was really cropped right around the edges. That was too intense. So I zoomed out, had a better space for showing the shadow from the tail and everything. Then yeah, reworked the geometry of the tail, added some lighting in here, everything as promised. Removed the extra cloth on the elbow, added some relaxed, more realistic wrinkles, repeating the XOXO pattern of the spots, where they go like two spots, one spot, two spots, one spot. It's like a basic thing to do. I mentioned it a lot of times before, but that's one of the things, how you approach this kind of wrinkles in here. And yeah, in here we always have these kind of like vertical wrinkles a little bit. By the way, borrow merch, the link is in the description. Overpaint t-shirt. And yeah, I was making sure that the lighting is working from the back, like in here I added the bright lighting and everything. So yeah, and consistent shading on the whole tail. If I had stronger shadows in here, I was trying to transition from them at the bottom as well. Wasn't sure what this hole in this jacket meant. Was that an actual hole, or is that like a part of an armpit? So what's going on there is like the sleeve going there, and this is, but the more I look at it, it looks like a hole. So yeah, I filled in the colors in here, covered the whole right side details of the horns with darker shadow, so I was working in overall darker values on the right horn because it was completely on the shadow side of the whole character. And yeah, pretty much with that, well, I left it pretty drafty, chose a different color because everything was just pink, so I decided why not make the horns, you know, violet. I think it looks much better that way. And it solved the issue of, you know, losing the appearance of the ears. Right now, I think they read pretty well, even in this very drafty quality of it. And yeah, wasn't sure, there was a lot of very messy details on the sweater right here. I kind of cleaned it up. I'm not sure, was there something going on in there more complex than just a basic like V-neck thing? And yeah, worked a little bit on this jacket. For some reason, I really felt like adding more like accurate values to it, because the original had very intense like dark and light shadows with very thick outlines. I tried to like remove most of it, shade things with actual appropriate colors, you know. I really think you shouldn't be so afraid of, you know, getting rid of outlines, so I think it pays off when you do it like that, but of course it takes practice, no pressure. Next patient is Vic. Hey there. Hi Vic. First of all, my apologies for such a late post. Don't you worry about that. This one is my latest take on environment art with a completely new workflow I tried to develop for it. I'm very happy with how it turned out. However, I'm struggling with the whole concept of leaving details fuzzy and undefined where they blend together anyway, so I just eyeballed it. Your help is much appreciated, and thank you yet again. Alright Vic, really cool stuff. I like this one even more than the previous picture that you had in a very similar art style. Really liking the colors, the contrast, and generally the focal point and everything. It's a picture I want to be looking at. Couple of things I would change, and it somehow will transition into your problem with leaving certain details undefined and everything. I would work on the shape design, like on the middle scale of actual shapes of certain objects, as well as on the smaller scale of the brushwork. Right here, I don't like that I'm seeing this weird broken line going on in here. It's a really unpleasant tangent. So I would move this this little bush around here. I would put it somewhere else. Oh, is that something new? Color aware, object aware. Okay. So I'm guessing something like that would work better, I think. Also, being a bit less obvious, you know, creates somewhat of a more complex mesh. And that's like the shape design on the level of the brushwork. Find good intersections of these sticks and branches, you know, to make them look a bit more interesting. Use different values, different hues, so they would dance around, creating an interesting composition, like micro composition. Same goes for this, these puddles. I don't know, is this a river or some kind of a swamp, maybe? I don't know. But it seems to like end in here, so it's just whatever. I'm not a specialist, but yeah, now as I removed that bush, I feel like I need some kind of a stronger, you know, continuation here, this pointy shape or something. So that's one thing. I don't know what that is. And yeah, on the whole subject of not being able to keep things simple, the problem with that is actually in your, I would say, like, classical brushwork, where you're like making these spots everywhere. Kind of the way I used to paint a little while ago, where I didn't kind of care about the brushwork and I was trying to solve it later. In your case, it kind of works with the style, obviously, but that's the part of the reason why you can't leave anything untouched. You need to cover everything with these spots, which is, I think, a part of this art style, so I don't know. Generally, what you can do is, like, for instance, this area, I don't know, this, like this part, right? This is a very uniform, kind of a boring grass part. So I would think on what kind of shape would bring something useful to the composition when I'm thinking about this part, you know? And I feel like creating this kind of slope in here, like this area, there's a little bit of a bald spot in here. It will catch more light from the, like maybe reflecting a little bit of that light, maybe just being lit from the top. And the rest would be more of a, you know, just masses of bushes. And in here, I would play around with an interesting suspense of these bushes on top of this slope, you know, a little bit. So I'm just adding something, but this is mostly solving the issue of, you know, this just being a bit boring in here, maybe. Like, I don't think I'm taking away from the main composition. I think it works pretty good, generally. But right now, you see these shapes, while they kind of break out of your art style, but maybe that's something you would want to add to your art style. I'm having a certain shape design, certain dynamics. You can feel the suspense in here, how these bushes are like, oh, like we're about to fall, and then there's the fall and everything, you know. It tells the story. These simple shapes, they tell the story. They're sort of clean. They look fast, and they were made pretty fast, but they're thought through. Their simple shapes have intention. And I think your final brushwork of these smaller, like, more impressionistic little spots that look really cool and fitting really well with your kind of like traditional, cozy and very romantic art style in here, they can go on top of this. Like, afterwards, if you want to define more specifically the shapes, then you start breaking it down. So you pretty much go for the same thing, but as I mentioned in a couple of my very inspired videos where I discovered the awesomeness of the shape design, simplify things. Like, I know maybe things don't look like that in references that you use or something, but come up with them. Come up with the meaning of suspense, of a fall, and then of something laying flat and being calm after the fall. You know, it all has to have this kind of sense. And breaking it down further, adding some details where you need to, that's something that comes next. That's the easy part. And yeah, the whole point of it is that when you do this, when you simplify like this, that's where you can feel pretty easy of letting go of simpler shapes. Like, I don't have to define this any stronger. This brushwork right here, even though it's incredibly simple, it's thought through, it has meaning, it's not work in progress. It's already a defined message. So that's enough. I mean, I don't know, maybe you have a different opinion on the way this thing looks right now, but, you know, I hope you get the point of what to go for. Next patient is Ben Gibson. Hello again, Borrow. Hi, Ben. I'm back again this month to glean more art tips from you. I'm not sure what glean means, but I'm okay with that. The stuff you said about line dependence and trying to paint with planes and form instead of lines has really helped me. Looking for more general advice yet again. Cheers. Alright, Ben. Really cool progress, such an interesting character. Couple of things I noticed that I would change. Number one, first of all, generally the spread of contrast is pretty good, so it led me to the main focal point immediately. Well, I mean, it wasn't hard, I guess, with the super black face area and super glowing eyes. But one thing I noticed, it's almost like a personal preference, but I feel like the fact that two eyes are just perfectly round, two glowing things, it kind of makes the character feel a bit too simple and not as interesting as it actually is. You know, when I looked at it for an extra moment, I realized that the design is actually really good, it's really well thought through and everything, but because that rendering was so simple, I at first felt like, oh, the whole character is just like cartoony or something because of just perfectly round eyes. So why not add some of this like refraction, maybe some kind of reflection between the hairs that are covering the eyes, you know, something like that. So kind of the same, but I feel like it fits much better with the rest of the concept, and this is a bit too oversimplified, I would say. Another thing I would fix is obviously some kind of problem in geometry happening in here. Like, I can see the big belly sticking out forward, so that's one geometry that's going on like this. And the lag, like this lag is going on over there, so it's like behind it, you know? Well, sort of, but in here, it feels like literally this leg is growing out of this belly like this. So what's missing is a clear distinction that this is one shape. I'm still seeing like some outlines in here and there, you know? You probably just paint in the same layer with the sketch, I guess, or something like that. I could never do that. I don't know how people do that. Whenever I try to paint in the same layer with the sketch, I just feel like I'm wasting so much time because I just have to fight all of these lines all the time. So if you do that, it seems like you do that a lot. I highly recommend like making the sketch in a separate layer and then just painting underneath it. So yeah, this underneath of the belly in general, why it doesn't need outlines while still being, you know, looking very much separate from the legs, is the fact that it's all facing very much downwards, so it's a pretty dark plane, all of it. Like, it's all on the bottom half of the belly, so it's gonna be pretty dark. I would say, I think, yeah, even in terms of maybe the posture, the general gesture of the character, it felt like something was off with this leg in general. I think it needs to be more like on the back in here. So like this. The point is, the belly sticks forward. It's like the thing with the nose, you know? It sticks forward doesn't mean that the rest of the thing needs to follow it. Like a skinny person would be, you know, kind of like this, but then there's just the belly in front. So one thing though, obviously, since it's there now, the character needs to balance themselves by sticking this leg forward a bit. And yeah, usually on like an overweight person, you don't see a gap between the legs, especially at this angle. Like, they pretty much like touch each other a lot. There's not gonna be, you know, this nice negative space in between the legs. with the belly, we had this shading issue. Same thing in here, kind of like, think of it, the curvature going on, the middle of the curvature in here, and not in the middle of the tombstone. So it will darken a bit faster in there, I would say, or something like that, you know, since there's like the main light coming from the top, and we have a certain interesting contrast going on thanks to it, we should continue it everywhere. So if the middle line of the belly became darker, we should repeat that everywhere, you know. In here, it's a pretty vague value game going on, you know. I can't see where that edge actually happens, so something like that. This bone on the finger definitely needs to be longer, so I don't know, I would like extend it and then shorten this part so the finger wouldn't get longer than the rest of the fingers. And yeah, maybe define some of the curvature of the other bones that are going on, something like that a little bit. Much better. Tiny detail. But yeah, by the way, really cool detail, but I gotta say, I kind of barely noticed it. If the eyes I noticed immediately, and generally the character, this part, I would like make it a bit higher contrast, and I can totally see how this arm right here could be much brighter. Since this is a very dark jacket or whatever, the shadow underneath can be much darker on it, and the highlights, you know, corpses, they get a bit glossy in a pretty gross way. I mean, the anatomy of the arm is in general kind of wonky, but I don't think I can help it too much right now. But yeah, I think this spot right now is really grabbing the attention. Before that, it was really blending with the character like too like unimportantly. And this way you kind of want to look here. A very subtle difference, but goes a long way, I think. And yeah, the whole thing with the curvature and like the values and reacting to the light coming from the top, it pretty much kind of needs to be applied everywhere. Also, the way this shirt is hugging the belly very naturally, almost like it's a wet paper or something. It feels like it needs some wrinkles or something, and a bit more like messaging about the tension on the cloth. So you kind of have these lines going on in here that show the tension. But this big distance, like what would it mean exactly? Unless it's like leather, like some kind of white leather he's wearing. Usually when it's stretched like that, then whatever material it would be, it would also be like, almost like, if there's an extra material, I mean, it would be like curving over the button, right? Like this or something, you know? Really giving us the feeling that there's real stretch going on. So when things stretch, they really start doing this curvature right after the point of tension. So in this case, right around the button. So kind of like this. And yeah, in terms of values, I would start shading down in here a little bit, because this is all curving downwards. Maybe not as much, but that only means that at the top it's even more flat, so this will be the brightest and this will be the darkest, and it can't not do that. It can't go flat, and it felt kind of flat. So yeah, I don't know, it depends on what kind of lighting you were going for here. Maybe it kind of fades away as like a soft spotlight, so in the back it's getting darker, that's why there's not a lot of the brightness going on in there, but really that part shouldn't be the cartoonish black outline. It should be the top plane that's actually brighter than everything else, because it's facing upwards more than anything before it. See, immediately looks like a painting, and this was more of a drawing. I just changed one line, and it's a immediate switch. Also, if this paper, is that a paper? I think it looks kind of like a paper. If it's right next to the candles, maybe it has some of that translucency going on. Why not? I'll take some translucency if it's given to me. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it looks kind of weird now. maybe leave it the way it was. Next patient is Nedman. Hi Borrow. Hi Nedman. This piece is inspired by the show Psychopath Diary. Yeah, the guy does look kinda messed up. I wonder if he's actually bad. It shows one of the main characters hunting in a foggy forest. Sounds bad. I did my best thinking about contrast, lighting, color, and of course, fun shapes. Yeah, you sure did. I struggled a lot with making the character feel like it belongs with the background, and would appreciate it if you have any tips on how to make it less disjointed. If you have any other tips, they are of course also welcome. Alright, Nedman. I gotta say, immediately as I looked at it, I right away recognized that this is like a shot from a TV show. I don't know why. I guess it's just the way the character looks. Not on your side, but on the way characters look in TV shows, I mean. Something about the haircut maybe, I don't know. So, disjointed from the back, you say? I guess the main problem in here is just that you apply very different shading to the character and to the background. Like in here we have deep shadows. I don't know how far away from the character this tree is, but I think it deserves much darker shading, like something closer to this. This is your main issue. It really feels like it's supposed to be close, but it almost feels like it's a separate thing with a different Photoshop filter applied to the whole background, you know? So yeah, we'll just go ahead and go for this consistent shading, consistent colors on the background with the character, and obviously do the same thing in here. And honestly, the way I did it, already it feels like the character fits in. That was the main issue and it was pretty strong. Maybe, who knows, a little bit of the actual color of the tree would work, because it's like completely monochromatic in there, just shades of blue. If an object is right next to the character that is full color, there's no way to justify that this object doesn't have the same shading, you know? It needs to have that. Not necessarily the same level of detail, but the contrast and the light should be much closer to it. The thing is, in the back it works with like having everything just blue or whatever. That's because of the aerial perspective and generally like ambience dominating over everything else, but mostly is aerial perspective really. That's what desaturates things and makes all the shadows lighter. But we have a reference of the way the shading should be in the foreground, so we need to follow it. And yeah, the shapes are really cool. I really like the style of the head, of the reflections and everything, looking pretty dope. I would make maybe a bit more connection between these tiny details of hair texture on the edge, like on the hairline, with the actual dynamics of the overall shapes, you know, maybe make them a little bit bigger like this, and not just semi-transparent excuse of a hairline texture. This feels a bit more fitting. So yeah, I don't know, aside from it, I can see you went for a little bit of these dark outlines on the shoulders. Apparently you had a problem of when you add the rim lighting of this color, it like blends too much with the background. And I think the best way to do it is to overall make the coat darker. I think I would go for that. Or I mean adding some kind of you know, glow behind the character, but this picture has more of a realistic look, so this wouldn't be a good answer to it. But honestly, I would like seeing more of this kind of appearance, so I'm just gonna keep it. But yeah, like toning down this rim lighting and Fresnel reflection on the coat on the edges, just to get rid of the outlines with like this kind of color, also getting a bit darker on the lower plane, like the plane that's looking lower. And then maybe, you know, if you need a stronger contrast between the top of the shoulders and the rest of it, then just tone down the rest. That's one of the things that I find pretty valuable in many artwork that's like really well done, you know, cool paintings of cool artists, is that they segregate like global values between objects, like between the background and the foreground, in a very subtle difference, like it's a little bit darker, but it's consistently overall, like all of it is darker than the background. But just a little bit. That makes the whole character kind of darker, but not too dark for it to, you know, not work for the main character or something. Maybe kind of like this, you know? Or maybe not. It's a tough situation with the contrast of the face, obviously. So yeah, this is what I have to say. Next patient is by ants. I think it may be Blands, which is still very confusing. Hi Boro. Hi. You? This drawing is of Junji Ito's character Ramina. I have problems with names. She was wearing a pearl necklace that is just being cut off. I wanted the pearls to look like they might be orbiting her, to go along with the cosmic theme. Along with this theme, I gave her right eye reflections that silhouette a dark star shape, and her left eye a reflection the planet Ramina in the pupil. So a reflection of a planet on one side and the reflection of a dark star shape on the other eye. Aside, I fear I may have made her look a little too bug-eyed or glassy-eyed rather than lifelike, though this could be a lack of warmth in the skin too. A key thing I'd like your input on is the perspective of the viewer. I tried to immerse the viewer close up in the drama action of the scene, rather place them further out, like a bystander perspective. But I'm not sure it makes for a good composition as is. Good point. I welcome any angle you want to take to overpainting this, and thanks for all the informative content you put out. Alright, Byans. A really fun picture, I'm seeing a lot of potential in it. It's like almost there, but there's a few things that are not like taken completely to the place where they need to be, sort of. Some of them are in the design decision, like I really like that the picture has a very strong illustration value, like it's this whole composition with things floating around and everything, you know? It's very illustrative or something. So what's kind of bothering me are these things right here. They generally work. Also, I don't know what this is. It's like one of the pearls are kind of oval, or what is this? Like, it feels kind of weird. So generally the design, this dance with the pearls, it has a lot of potential, and it's bringing the message of the perspective and everything, don't get me wrong, it's looking really cool. But there's an issue with just the way you put them around. Like, this is a very repetitive and uninteresting pattern in here. And this thing, it's not overlapping anything, like not really going behind the head, and this thing is almost touching the head as well, so it's like on the side. I would really probably make it like this, maybe, you know, so it would be overlapping in here a little bit, or really going behind and then cast a shadow from the head on this part of the pearls. So in that case it would look a bit more like this. And on this side, these pearls, they just have this very heavy, like straight line, like it's some kind of sausage. It needs to have the feeling of the floating, you know? I'm like swinging my hands around when I'm talking about it. That's the whole point. So I would think on this kind of message, you know, maybe I would make them like that. So following that kind of shape. And actually I would connect a little bit this like solid part of the necklace with the falling off part. So one of the pearls would be still on the string falling off, maybe like this. That's like one of the issues I also found here, that it would be cool to improve the readability of what's actually going on, you know? I haven't read this particular manga by Junji Ito, but as what you described, we need to show the necklace actually breaking and everything. Another issue that I found, of course, first of all, you look at the face, you know, when you see the picture, and it has this like bent proportions, so I would work on that as well. So maybe this would work better. Of course, this is very rough for fixing a face, but I don't know, seems like it's a better deal now. Really loving this presumably blood in here. I would maybe also, like, this is all about, you know, the design, shape, and everything. There's a lot of elements in here that rely on this heavily, you know, on having nice flow and this decorative kind of value to them. But to make them really work, they need to have a bit of a, you know, more of a careful work done in that regard. As I mentioned in my previous overpaint, when you have like random details going on like this, you always have to choose the main one part of them. So you have several of these streaks of liquid, maybe blood, maybe not, and these two are perfectly equal in importance, in size and direction, you know, they are absolutely the same. The viewer has no idea what he's looking at and what it means when things are like that. So one of the things needs to be more important than the other one, meaning longer, higher contrast, or bigger. This is the kind of stuff that really matters, especially in this kind of decorative things. And if this feels blank, you know, add another one going on in here, but then, of course, make this one not as important as that one. You know, you need to cascade. It all kind of grows down to the whole idea of the golden spiral, you know? Any object needs to be considerably bigger than the other object, and that object needs to be considerably bigger than the next and the next. Things get smaller rapidly. All that golden rule does is really telling you that things need to differ one from another, so you would really understand which one is the main one. So I'm gonna do the puppet warp in here, I guess, because the super straight line is kind of weird now. And now I'm bothered that these two are the same. Like, that's actually a good point in general. Like, you see how much attention and specific decisions I make about this detail because I think it's really important. If you go with decorative approach, generally decorative, you know, flow, it's not realism in here, it's really surreal, then positionings and everything is pretty much all you have. And yeah, pretty much much more of that. The shading on the face is a bit wonky as well, but it's like in the details, in the brushwork, and like in the combination of things. I'll try to make it work and generally work on this picture more to see what I can do, and then we'll see what I have to say. So I worked on the piece a little bit more, and I went from this to this. Obviously still pretty drafty, but I think quite a few changes on the shape of the face right here and moving the mouth really made things work a bit better. Moved the pearl in here a little bit, changed the pattern, but I think it's still like pretty bad, maybe even worse than it was. But yeah, the point is thinking on these, on the dance of the details like that is really important. So I was using the combination of sharp and soft brushes all the time. It really made many details right here work more consistently in a very quick fashion. I seem to be really getting a good grasp of how to use hard plus soft brushes together sometimes, but I don't know, like it seems like a cool touch. But in here, I really should have paid more attention to overall composition that's shaping up with the pearls. Yeah, actually something I showed real quick right there. That's the way the pattern goes. I actually inverted this necklace on the head, some kind of head dress. It seemed to have a pretty good shape overall with this, but still, this is kind of breaking it and looking pretty lame. So following this kind of dynamics, I think it's pretty important. It makes all the small elements make sense all together. So I think it really works. Not too obvious. Obviously, it shouldn't literally draw out that shape, like S-shaped thing, but, you know, experiment with positioning. It's a lot more important than you might think. Next patient is Mia, and her quite brutal picture today. Hi Boro, hi Mia. This is fan art of a now defunct game. This is the main character. I linked a photo reference. Yeah, that's her alright. The underside of her hair was supposed to glow, but I made an error merging layers. I know I messed up with the mouth, but I'm not sure what I need to do to correct it. If you can help me with hand shading too, that would be great. Alright Mia, let's have a look. So you mentioned that the hair, let me choose a sharper brush, the hair needs to be glowing, that you messed up with the mouth? I'm not sure, I actually kind of liked it, but maybe the shading on it. And the shading on the hands. Well, I mean, I would just make it more precise, maybe? So first of all, the light, like this direction, right? Somewhere exactly in the middle between these two planes. Well, I would say the top plane would be taking the lead in the brightness. This is something I think about when I need to shade stuff. And yeah, the parts that are facing away from that light source immediately and considerably making them darker. And same thing goes on and on for the sweater and other stuff, of course. So I wonder, like, you didn't specify, is this artwork, like this particular piece, also defunct as the game that was defunct? Because it feels like, I'm not sure if is this like a quick sketch or an artwork that you accidentally merged the layers so you decided to give it up? Or you just wanted it to be like this kind of expressive quick sketch. So I think probably the latter is the way it is. I'm just a bit unsure about the way these very drafty, sketchy shapes, especially on the chest part in here, like they feel very drafty, and I wouldn't say that they are like, you know, expressive or define the shape or the mood well. Like they're really maybe messed up a little bit, but obviously the story is looking pretty messed up as well. I wonder if that defunct game, I actually looked it up a little bit. Love Letter? Or I forgot, Love Letter is the main thing and this fan art game is the Love Sick. But anyway, it was cancelled. So is this one of those games that starts like a romantic game for girls, but really there's a lot of very gory, brutal stuff going on afterwards? Or was it just a romantic story and this whole thing that's going on right here is purely your thing? I'm just wondering. But yeah, just went ahead and did hopefully some progress on this, on the glowing hair. I'm not sure if it's like, it's just glowing, or is it supposed to be like the light from the back hitting it? I mean, I don't think it matters that much, really. And in here, I did a little bit of, I know, it's weird to have such a strong shadow in here, so I kind of connected it, but instead of making, you know, just a consistent line for the buttons part, right? I did like this shape, so it only actually shows some kind of shadow more to the bottom. Maybe I'll add even a button, like this, whatever. And there's a hint on another one over there like this. So yeah, I don't know what happened here, but as a big fan of horror and gore myself, it's fun, so I'm not gonna question it too much. Mia actually asked me if it's okay to, you know, send this for overpaint. Isn't it too gory? Well, generally, maybe. If I'll be in trouble for this, I won't be painting over this in the future. But I mean, as just one part of more overpaints, and really, it's just a little eyeball, you know? Like, it is gory. Interesting, I kinda really like the base of this picture in terms of how it's artsy, messy, and with a lot of brush strokes of very different quality. Some of them are sharp, some of them are kind of soft, some of them are like spiky and very random. In all of that, I really feel a certain freedom of searching for stuff, you know? I'm just trying to add some more of the I know, better design maybe? I'm not sure if I'm succeeding at that, but I don't want to just clean it up and make it the way the way I paint. I feel like I could do something to keep it as is, more or less. Of course, it's gonna be a lot cleaner. I always clean things up a lot, but I see certain fun in this, especially, supporting this part in terms of this messy, interesting brushwork or whatever. After some more work, I got from this to this. Oh, it's looking pretty nasty. Like with a fresh eye, it gives it certain tactile feeling, like these spots and certain softness combined with the like messy textures that it used to have. It brings a little bit of that like photorealistic something while it's totally not overall photorealistic. So that's kind of interesting actually. So yeah, this is the way I went. At first was really going with sharp outlines at first, then started adding soft shadows and stuff like that, and everything became all soft and clean. Shading on the hands, like all the body shading was pretty much always done with softer brush. Added some reflected light from the face in here, so that was pretty helpful. Yeah, used a little bit of a mask in here to introduce the like bigger gradient like that, but wasn't using just dark, but actually like pretty saturated pink, violet color, so things would look a bit more interesting. In the end, I was adding those blood spots a little bit. Yeah, also made the eyeball a bit less orange or like skin colored, so it would actually look like an eye. Still think it's a good idea to do that. So yeah, just a bunch of softer shading with sharper spots on the blood. I wanted to introduce, it's an important thing about blood, introducing spots of a consistent scale. You're introducing some details that are like incredibly tiny and sharp. Like this kind of couldn't be blood really. Blood is liquid and it's pretty thick, so it can't lay down in such sharp spots. It almost doesn't really look like the thing. Next patient is Lowstar. Hi Lowstar. A pretty cool gladiator style character, I would say. Looks pretty solid. Hi Boro. Hi. First, let me testify here. As being one of the students in your first mentorship, yeah, I'm not doing mentorship for a little while. As you may have noticed, I'm not promoting it anymore because I realized after a month and a half that it was actually pretty overwhelming. So in terms of it was low-key exhausting me to the point where I started like skipping releasing videos and everything. I really don't want that to happen, so I kind of stopped that for a little while. Maybe I'll open it at any moment. I can do it. Like the tier is there. At some point I may publish it, and of course you guys will be the first one to know about that. We had a great time with several people, Lowstar included, and that's it for now. It's my original character, Salidor Ilvanur, a Dunmer from Elder Scrolls Online. He's wearing the new Deadlands set armor, with the modification to the shoulders as it looked better to me. Yeah, these look pretty good. I trust your taste. The thing on the opposing side of his face is inlaid silver, and he has some nasal rod piercings that I know are a little hard to read. Yeah, actually, I think I forgot to comment on it later. You see them pretty well when you zoom in. They're there, but when you zoom out, I was like imagining they would be like a little circle in here, but no, that wasn't it. They're pretty big. I guess you should have made them like overall brighter. I forgot to address them. That's why I'm saying it now. The issue I have really is the colors, so I began this piece the moment after I watched your video about neural filters and wanted to try it myself. So I first painted it in black and white and then began colorizing. And then I painted over nearly the whole thing, mostly using those colors already added. I can't help but feel that the colors seem a bit more dead compared to painting from color. Almost like the colors aren't married to the picture, but instead like a glaze on top. The colors don't seem as alive as they do when I start from color, so I was wondering if you had any tips for getting the picture to a more lively look while using this really neat filter. Alright Lowstar, the dude is looking pretty cool. Does look quite different from your previous artwork, and I'm not talking about the colors all that much as more of the shapes, really. Very consistent and real geometry of the torso and everything. The hands are awesome, like a really good, like, real character here. Couple of things around the face I would change. First of all, before we move on, in here it definitely lacks a little bit of the geometry actually turning away, and, you know, applying some foreshortening over there. Something like that. And I really feel like, I may be wrong, but, you know, we have this plane next to the nose, and on that side it's missing, like it's eaten away a bit too fast. That's what I really feel about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some of that. Yeah, I don't know, this feels a bit more natural to me than this. This really feels like, right now as I'm switching, it feels like it's just cut off. So in terms of colors, your main question was like to make the colors work really as a part of the painting and not something added on top. And I'm looking at it like, which part? I'm not sure. Like, it looks pretty good. Like, it's just as a style, you know? Some weird colors going on here, like it's much draftier, like quicker brushwork in the coloring layer there, so it may appear disconnected, but I don't think that's what a neural filter did. But it doesn't matter, like you kept working in a separate layer, so from black and white. I remember I gave this advice once, I think in my videos about painting in layers and everything. It was from black and white as well. So in there I talked about how when you use colorization of any kind, when you start in black and white, paint everything without any highlights at first, except for metals. Metals you can paint with full highlights because actually everything you see on a metal, all of it is only highlights. It doesn't really have like color. You're just seeing colorized highlights on them. So it's fine to paint those like this, but the rest needs to be like matte. And pretty much you have things matte right now, but then you colorize, and then on top you add normal highlights of the skin and everything. So obviously I'm not talking about making this guy all glossy and covered with oil, although it may be someone's thing. I'm talking about that skin is always reflective, even when it's dry. It's just that when it's dry, its roughness becomes much, much higher. And that means that instead of the highlight being like a sharp thing like this, or something, you know, like a sharp highlight, it actually spreads all over the place. It becomes much more subtle and spread all over the place. So pretty much, for most people, there is no highlight. It's just the way lighting works, like it's just a lit arm, no highlights, just matte lit arm. But the difference is in the color, because the highlight is always adding the paleness. You know, when it's a sharp highlight, it's pretty obvious. But when it's diffused, it's the same thing. It's like there is a colorful, like, color of the surface of the skin, and then around the highlight at the brighter areas, it becomes desaturated. So looking more like this, I guess. But generally your colors are very specific always, like they have this strong gradient into like blue. I think like this character is all blue, so I'm not sure how to make it more natural. But that's actually an interesting idea, the whole point. Like, I think that's like the key thing about coloring in a separate layer. You can do it no problem, like generally having the whole object, if you have like just, you know, a green object and you just shade it like vertically like this, right? So it's monochromatic. It's the same thing as if you would colorize it with just green color in a separate layer. Like this could be literally first made in black and white and then colorized on top. There's literally no difference between this and colorizing it with just flat green color on top. The only problem you may have is if you would paint a highlight before that and then the highlight would look like this. Now this is a monochromatic lame picture. or a green metallic object, that would also work. But to make it colorful, you need to add the highlight of an appropriate color. And in this case, I'll just blend it in. And this is now the highlight. And it may be, again, very subtle and very diffused like this. But just the fact that the highlight is bringing the colors into a like brighter area, right? A highlight is brighter. And at the same time, in the same brushwork, we can see how that part also becomes less saturated and shifted a bit closer to like pale yellow. That immediately looks like a colorful object, like actually colorful picture. And on top of that, you can add other reflections. Generally, all the reflections, including, I kind of forgot to mention it, but not only the highlight here, but like rim reflection of any sorts. Rim lighting in general is pretty much always just a reflection, because it's that strong angle, you will mostly see a reflection because of the Fresnel effect. So pretty much this spot and this spot should be painted after you colorize. Which is not hard, because adding highlights in the end is a pretty natural thing to do anyway. So it's pretty easy to do. At first you just think on the objects, and on their values and everything. Then you colorize everything, decide on all the colors, and then on top you actually like render them further by adding the highlights. I think I just realized, is this supposed to be all symmetrical, right? It's kind of weird how, I'm not sure how this happened, like pretty strong shift in here with the color thing. Like, it feels like very strong perspective here that this changed so much, and at the same time, like, the snack feels like it's perfectly facing us, instead of, you know, being kind of in that perspective, that angle. Maybe I'll go ahead and fix that, but aside from that, totally cool picture, really liking it as it is, I think. So yeah, spent a few more minutes just adding the little fix with the neck and chest armor. So pretty much some manipulations with the warp tool and yeah, painting over a little bit made it work pretty well, I think. Next patient is Ylva Winters and her awesome looking white wolf, white fox maybe character? I don't remember if she mentioned that, but yeah, looking pretty dope. Hey Borrow. Hi Ylva, this is a profile picture I drew for a friend of mine, and honestly, I've been feeling really art blocked lately, and I feel like my drawings are just mediocre at the minute. Like, her face looks okay when you first look at it, but then it just kinda looks really wonky and weird the next second. Yeah, there's one specific thing to fix. I wonder if you guys already see that. I do like the shoulder guard though. Yeah, you guys know your stuff about the shoulder guards, don't you? The drawing overall feels wonky and a bit off. Thanks for the help, Ylva. Alright Ylva, really feeling for you in terms of your art block. The way you said it really felt like a drag. So let's see what we can do with this face. One thing I noticed is that the nose is actually kind of two-dimensional. I don't know if I'll be able to fix it this way though. But, you know, if you look at it like this, like it's really squished too close to the face. I think that's one of the problems. It's not really turned away as much as the face is. And yeah, let's just try and shade it without adding some artificial darkening on the cheek, and instead adding some highlight on the actual nose. Shouldn't lose this nice curvature though. Also, really feeling like doing this. Although I do agree, this shoulder guard is looking really dope. Like a comic book art style with these sharp black shadows and everything. I don't even want to like reshade it or anything. Maybe like adding more of those, you know. But whatever, it's not improving anything. One thing I noticed in here, you had nice shading on the braid, but this one is kind of missing it. So I would improve that maybe. You have a nice gradient of shading on the hair on the head, so I'm just repeating that. Same in here, adding some dynamic shading as well. One thing at a time. I would maybe say something about maybe this horn needs to be actually sticking out forward, but I feel like they sort of intentionally go a bit backwards so they wouldn't stick out forward too much. And I'm cool with that. I like the way that looks. So yeah, that's what I had to say here. Little final curvature fix right here that really felt like something wrong in my version of the nose, but comparing to the original, I think it makes sense what I did for sure. And yeah, some nicer shading on the cheek, some more Fresnel reflections following the shading of the nose, that curvature going away as well, so adding more of that pale reflection there. And yeah, some nice rounding gradient shading going on these cylinders on this side. I would maybe make the chin a bit bigger or something, but that's like a matter of taste or something, like it's not exactly a mistake. So yeah, maybe like this instead of this. Though it's also not just about the shape of the outline, it's like the shape of the shading there. Needs to relax a bit with all these wrinkles. Like the light is from the side, so there wouldn't be so much wrinkling going on. It feels like a bit of a weird chin, I think. So yeah, that's the chin fix now. Next patient is Florencia Diaz Sierra and her pretty zen-looking bard from League of Legends. Hey there, hi there. I made this drawing a few years ago and just finished today. LOL. I tried painting it. At first it was just a plain color vector image, but I don't like how it looks. The arms look flat, colors are all over the place, shadows are bad too, etc. One thing I wanted to add was some background and some stuff from the game. Again, since I'm not super happy with the current result, I didn't think it was worth it. I should learn the basics first before going for a big composition, I guess. Yeah, you're right. Never really followed that rule myself, but you see where I am now. If you see different types of brushes, that's because it was made over the years and my style changed. I just didn't want to redo everything since I'm still not sure how to fix it. Alright, Florencia. I actually like a lot the original drawing, it looks pretty cool too. But the shading one also has a pretty cool thing going on for it, with this soft, nice lighting coming from the top. It just needs a bit more correct values to really show that type of lighting. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll just explain the thing on the arms probably, it's like the most interesting area in here. I see you went like, really tried to think through, I see some reflected light from the red cloth in here, so that's pretty interesting. I'm gonna erase it. I'm gonna erase it for a different reason, because I want to show a stronger difference in values between the vertical cylinder and the horizontal cylinder. So in here, what you drew in here, the shading, it's for like this shape. And we need this shape. So let's define that plane a bit more. And our main goal in here is to show a strong difference between the value in here and in here. It supports the idea of the bending arm and all that. Now this I'm gonna tone down because I'm going for like the light source that has these god rays from the top, so this will be kind of turned away a bit. And in your version, this is almost brighter than this, which is the opposite of what should happen. And yeah, I erased the reflected light, actually like the slight red ambience that was left. That's pretty much mostly what would actually happen, considering nothing's actually glowing in here, you know? It's not that strong of a reflected light, I would say. In here, this makes sense, but the only thing is it generally needs to be darker, because it looks like almost like a mirror reflection. I would make it like more saturated and darker a bit. So tone it down and grab like really saturated version and put it back in, and softer. If it's not a reflection, it needs to be softer, because this whole plane is turned to this part, it's catching all this light. So yeah, just going ahead and trying to support this whole geometry here. Very different shoulders going on. Like in this case, this shading makes a lot more sense. I wonder why the shoulders are pretty different, like there's some kind of big muscle going on in here. Oh, it was symmetrical like that before. I mean, I kind of like this design, it's kind of cool for this character, but whatever, you get the point. If you want this shoulder, it will be like this shading, with this curving into darker parts, like this, getting brighter at the top. It's all pretty simple, you just have to really, make sure it happens everywhere, all the time. Then it starts looking like the real deal. About the shape of the pants, I'm not sure, like, under these pants, bent like this with this flat shape, what kind of knees are underneath these pants? I'm not sure. So he seems like, I don't know, a robot, but not really. But I think this part should be hanging downwards, a bit more relaxed. Oh, also, these drill legs right here, they should be, I think, casting a deep, soft shadow at the bottom. It's looking really cool to do that. And finally, we've come to the hands. They were the same way in the drawing, and they look weird in the drawing as well. Point is, you really want to see the palm starting somewhere from here, like the fingers should be going on at this part. And they're like really low instead. So I'll mark it in the way I see it. And again, a lot softer shadow going on here, and pretty much everywhere else. Under the beard, generally this area should be occluded quite a lot, and the beard is doing it just right, maybe even stronger to, show that the beard is bigger. Another deep shadow going on here, like this from the legs, I guess. Some of that in here as well, under the arms. And generally, I'll try to remove all these super sharp, well, not super, but sharp shadows, because I don't think they make sense in this place with the soft lighting. If we have soft lighting with barely any Terminator showing up, but I'm trying to show it a little bit in some areas, but generally it's like a super soft studio lighting, which is what I'm going for. Kind of this zen kind of environment, it looks like it needs a special kind of lighting. And yeah, I really wanted to do the same thing for the beard. The beard has pretty nice shading of like details, but it needs the overall shading of the shape. So I'm just doing this and then I'll erase everywhere where there's no beard. There we go. So yeah, this shading is really something that this beard was missing. I need to obviously darken it a lot at the bottom because it's just like a weird fog now. And yeah, I'll add some of the deeper stuff inside of it. I'll also bring up the top part a little bit like this. So yeah, that's pretty much the reshading that I think this picture really needed. And aside from that, everything's pretty cool. So yeah, the end result turned out, I think, pretty cool. This is exactly the kind of shading that this character needed. One thing I wanted to mention, as I'm looking at it right now, the shading of the frontal part of the hands. It's really, really flat. What I needed to do, I needed to add more soft shadow in here, like kind of sharp and soft in here. So this bone would be actually sticking out more. Like in here, the spleen needs to be kind of shaded down. Without that, it just looks really weird, almost like not a hand, but some kind of construction robot or something. And overall, it could take a while to, really polish everything, but I think aside from the hands right here, overall the picture is looking pretty dope. Next and final patient today is Sketch Monster. And they're pretty awesomely rendered and quite unique looking dragon. And Sketch Monster is still pretty short spoken. I was working on this and I don't know what direction to take it in. I don't know what to render next and I don't know what to do with the ground. Well, you feel pretty lost, but I think I addressed everything you just said. So let's take a look. Alright, Sketch Monster. Well, the main problem I see with this picture is the composition. And it's kind of a bit painful to see that you detailed the face of the dragon so much, while other parts are really unfinished yet. And by the way, you did a pretty awesome job on the head. I really like the way it's shaded. Nice look. But I feel like it needs some changes to the composition. Well, it would make sense maybe like this, I guess? I'm just going from the idea that you probably don't want to restart that head and everything. So if we have what we have, how do we, you know, make it work as a picture? So this guy is really probably... I wonder if I'm doing something that you did the opposite way before sending the picture, you know? Because obviously the dude was kind of repositioned, and this mountain as well. Like in the original there was something going on, but I guess it was just from here to here. And what I'm doing is I'm legit making it a lot wider and all. I'm actually gonna go ahead and remove these guys from here. They feel like a part of like a flat frame for the picture, you know? Let's go with something more real. Like a little bit, think about the ground, maybe more of that kind of yellow lava or whatever it is. It's an unusual color for it, so I'm not sure if it's lava, but it seems like something pretty flashy. It feels like this dragon really doesn't want to fight or something. He's like, yes, what do you want, kind of thing, you know, just pretty chill. And the guy, I think he's just scared. I think they'll find common ground. So the dude is standing like on this bridge or something, and there's lava all over it. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, there we go. This would kind of work, although I still would like to see the rest of the dragon on that right side. Is this a dragon anyway? Are there wings in there and you cut them off because they didn't work out? I wonder. I guess I'll never know. But yeah, this could make a picture like this, I think. Maybe something should happen in this spot right here because it feels a bit blank. Oh yeah, and the shading on these soft spots, they should be a bit more... Like, don't do like this line and then like that. It's a shading from the bottom. Let's make it work. And there's nothing going on in the back to give that rim light like that. I would just go with the consistent shading from the bottom and here, and that's it. So yeah, that's the kind of direction I would push it for. Hope that helps. And yeah, that'll be it. These are all the 10 submissions this time. I think this is the record number. Though overall, the whole thing was pretty well. I didn't feel like overwhelmed or anything. So if any of you guys want me to overpaint your picture like this, the link to my Patreon page is in the end of this video. You become my patron in the overpaint tier, submit the picture with a message, I read the message and overpaint the picture. But for now, this is it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Okay, I republished the overpaint here. Really hoping no one's gonna submit a new artwork in the next minute, or I'll have to shoot this whole thing all over again.